Welcome to the WorkJoy Jam podcast. I am your host, Beth Stallwood, and today I am joined by Nicola Rylett, who has a really interesting career in lots of different areas, from sales and marketing into helping businesses and helping individuals be the best they can, thinking about their potential and helping them to achieve it. In this conversation, we talk about things like motivation, we talk about the stories in your head, we talk about purpose, we talk about how you are able to articulate what's important to you. So do dive in and have a listen to my conversation with Nicola Rylett, and I will come back at the end of our conversation and do a little summary of the things that I'm taking away too. Enjoy. Well, hello and welcome to the WorkJoy Jam. I'm so excited today to be joined by Nicola Rylett, who is going to be my guest, and we're going to have some great conversations. But rather than me introduce Nicola, I'm going to hand over to you. Could you tell our audience a little bit about who you are and what it is you do?
I can. Hello, everybody. Nice to be here today. Thank you ever so much for inviting me, Beth. Well, let's start with some fun stuff, shall we? Let's do it a bit differently. I'm a straight-talking Lancashire lass, okay? And I love nothing more than doing up furniture and DIY myself. I bought 2 shacks, and I mean shacks, in France, and I'm trying to stretch myself and learn myself and equip myself with some skills around doing them up so that we can gîte them for the summers and people can really explore the beautiful French surroundings that we find ourselves in when we're down there. Outside of that, I've got a very interesting collection of hobbies. I, some years ago, passed my professional personal training diploma, so I actually can take you to the gym and keep you safe, Beth.
Excellent.
I like supboarding. I love running and swimming. I'm desperate to do a triathlon, but a bit injured at the moment, so I can't do that. I love hosting dinner parties, but I never cook. That's my husband's job, and nobody would want me to cook. Nobody on this planet would want me to cook. And another weekend pleasure of mine is sitting with some cross stitch or some sewing. I like to create clothes and various things like that. Aside from that, I love adventure holidays. I've been snowmobiling in the Arctic Circle. I've been on safari to South Africa, and I've been camping in the Egyptian desert with some Bedouin people. And I hope to do more of that, obviously, now that COVID's listed, to do some more of those adventure holidays. Aside from that, I adore French sparkling wine, the great outdoors, and I'm sure this is one that you will connect with, Beth, dancing around my kitchen like nobody's watching.
Yeah. I don't even care if they're watching when I do it, but yeah, I think dancing around a kitchen is one of the best things you can possibly do.
Do you want to know a bit of formal stuff now? Because that's all the stuff I do in my part time, right? In my time. So
that's your life stuff. I love it.
That's my lifestyle. Yeah. So basically, I run a couple of businesses. One of them is a business consultancy, executive coaching, and mentoring organisation that helps business owners solve business problems, and we are a very can-do organisation. We'll probably talk more about that later. I also run an organisation that's called My Child's Not Broken, and this is an administration app to help parents get special educational needs for their children. You probably know it's a really stressful time. It's a really stressed situation where we're not getting enough support into schools for kids that need help, and we just believe that every kid deserves the support they require. So we've done an app to help parents get that support. I'm a non-exec director of Swim Wales, and I'm also a trustee and the deputy chair of the Institute of Leadership and Management. So pretty much I help people, individuals, organisations, parents, kids, be the best version of themselves they can be. That's what I go to do every day of the week.
Amazing. And it's so interesting thinking about kind of what you do in life and what you do in work, and thinking about, like, I like the dinner party thing, like you love hosting them but you're not cooking. I am seeing you like hostess with the mostess. I have slight images of like Angel Strawbridge with your making your DIY in France, sorting these things out.
Now, if you can just imagine Angel doing her thing, yes, that's me. But, you know, she used to have a little workshop in the shack at the back of the chateau, not the chateau itself. That's my house I'm doing up. So, imagine the shack where the cat is or where the dog is. That's my house, and I'm doing that up. Yeah.
And it sounds like as well, like there's lots of things you enjoy in life, and also like lots of different roles in your working life as well. So having that multiple, what do people call it, a portfolio career of lots of different things and things that you care about, but all joined together with this theme of helping people be at their best, helping organizations solve problems, working on those kind of things. So it's a great introduction. Thank you so much. And I'd be really interested if you're up for it, because most people don't start with a career that has lots and lots of different elements to it. I'd love to know, where did you start off and how did you work to where you are now?
Well, it's interesting that you connected those things together. I love it when that kind of thing happens, when somebody listens to you and they connect things in a new way, that you learn something new. But interestingly, it's the first time I've thought about that way. When I first started off, I actually did a music and drama degree. Lovey darling.
I did a music degree, so we're in the same zone.
We did, yeah. I used to, interestingly, used to conduct, and I used to do orchestration. That was my specialty. I used to play the clarinet and the piano as well, but I used to love conducting things and, in effect, organising people and bossing people around. All that kind of stuff is right up my street. But then I realised very quickly that although it was a passion, I wasn't necessarily going to be very good at it, and that, for me, is really important. Being the best you can be, and being good at something and becoming an expert in it is really important. And so I looked at what else I was quite good at in life, and it turned out I was quite good at sales and marketing. And I used to work in a Saturday shop, and I used to sell things, and I used to work one day a week for a company and be the best salesperson they had in the store, that kind of thing. And so that sort of sales and influence and persuasion took me down a route of sales and marketing, and did that for many, many years, and then wanted to become more senior and more of an executive in those roles, and so moved again into a director level role, but it was about customer service and recruitment. And then there was another role which was about developing a business, and I was working my way up to becoming a managing director, because that's what I said I'd always wanted to be. And as a managing director, you'll know, working in your own business, but also running a business generally, you know that you have to sort of be able to understand and connect lots of different areas within a business, influence people to do things they need to do, but also connect these things and keep them all moving at the same time. And when I did that for many years, and when I looked back at that, there wasn't really an industry that connected it all. There wasn't really a sector or a skill. It was actually the fact that I would go in, look at the organization or look at the individual and look at the business and go, do you know what, I can see this massive potential, and I know that if we do X, Y, and Z, we'll get to here, we'll get over here, and we'll improve this and we'll improve that. And actually that's why I set my business up in the end, was because I realized that although there wasn't an industry or a sector knowledge expertise, which obviously I say it's important to me, what was an expertise that I had was actually I could spot an opportunity, I could do something about that opportunity, and I could actually turn around and move something from X to Z.
I love that, and I'm just really interested in the way that you said that, because so often if people are helping other organizations or helping people or helping a business, whichever version of supporting you look for in the role that you do, so often you're called in because there's a problem, and you look at all the problems. And the first thing you said is, I can see the potential.
Yeah.
And I think there's something interesting there about, like, how do we, if we were to have a mindset for ourselves, for when we're working with other people, for when we're working with businesses, what's the potential and how do we make that happen, versus what's the problem and how do we fix it? There's a really interesting approach.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I think, that is, there's two things about looking at the world: glass half full, glass half empty. Okay, there are, people talk about happiness, positivity, optimism. Okay, they're all in the same area, and there's a whole school of psychology around positive psychology and whatever. But just a couple of facts. One is that I think it's something around like 40% of your positive view or negative view on the world is set in your genes and your experience and things that have happened to you. So that means that when you're born, you have a set amount of genes, that the pathways in your brain are set in a certain way when you're born, right? But what happens to you can affect that. So God forbid you have a terrible trauma. We won't mention anything now because we don't want to trigger anybody, but you have a terrible trauma, then that will obviously influence that positive or negative experience. Vice versa. If you have a fantastic experience, that will also affect it. But actually, whatever happens at that stage in terms of experience, it's only about 40%. That means, I don't quite remember the exact figure, but that means that you yourself, you and I, every single day can actually affect our positive or negative outlook on the world. And so we can make this happen. And so I always said to people always say to me, oh, you're really positive. You always look at the bright side of everything. You're always really optimistic. And actually, I'm very lucky that way. I think I was programmed with a very positive view. I'll look at something and go, oh, look, we can just do this over here. And I just, blindly go off into saying we can do it, But actually, everybody can learn to do it better because it is 60%, malleable.
Yeah. I love those stats as well. And I think you are so right. Everyone has a slightly different approach to it. And that 40% will be a range, right, about how we come to it. And I think I'm also probably quite lucky that I had quite a lot of it coming into it. But we also have choices, right? We're able to make choices
100%.
about what do we do and how do we see things. And it's not just a personality trait. It is a skill that we can develop. We can say, actually, I want to change the way I look at this.
Well, absolutely. I mean, just a really simple, I know you like sharing hints and tips that are really practical,
I
but
do.
a really, really practical thing is by writing down, you can do two or three different ways of doing this, but writing down every day in your diary or your work journal, or even if you've got an app on your phone these days, the kids will have an app on the phone, won't they? But, however you write something down, pen and paper is better if you can, but however you write it down, writing 3 things at the end of the day that either that are good that have happened to you, or that you've been happy about, or the other way to do it is to put what you're grateful for. And if you write 3 of those down every single day, by the end of the year, you can't help but be in a more positive frame of mind, because you then start looking for them. It's a bit like you say to yourself, I'm going to buy a new car, or I'm going to buy a new computer, or I'm going to try and look for something new I want to buy myself. The minute you decide what you want, you'll see them everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's your brain helping you. It's
Yes.
helping you kind of go,
yes,
okay, this is where you've decided to focus some attention.
Yeah.
So we're going to, it's
And-
not that they weren't there before. They've always been there, but we're going to pay attention to them now.
And that's the same with positive stuff. So if you pay attention every single day to the stuff that goes well, and the stuff that you do well, and the stuff that people do well for you, or the compliments people pay you, then you'll remember that stuff more and you'll spot it more. And that's a very, very nice circle that keeps going round and round and round. And by the end of it, you just can't help but lift your spirits and lift your positivity.
Absolutely. And if you look at it from the kind of neuroscience angle, what you're doing is you're creating new neural pathways that will become a habit that will make you look at it. Yeah. So it's science. It is a science thing, but it doesn't need a scientific mind to be able to apply it. You can just do it. You can choose to do it and make it happen. And I think actually, just while you're talking about it, one of the things that we have available on the WorkJoy website, createworkjoy.com, is a free downloadable, which is WorkJoy, where do you get yours? And all you do for a week is track, like, where are you getting your joy from? And so many people tell me when they do it is, oh, I've just noticed way more joy than I ever thought about. I always thought it was all miserable, but it's really not.
Yeah.
And it's not. You're just noticing it more.
Yeah.
And our brains, we do have, human brains have a negativity bias. We are looking for danger, looking for things that are going to go wrong all the time. So sometimes we completely ignore the good stuff. But by really focusing on what was good today, what made me happy, what am I grateful for, you'll be able to notice way more of it. So I love that. Love it. So you go in and you look for potential. I'd be really interested, because obviously you do individuals and businesses. What do you kind of scan for? What are your kind of things? How do you find out what potential looks like for that person or that organization?
Well, so the first thing is, I always start with the adage that people don't go to work to do a bad job.
Yeah.
So I'm always thinking, you're at work, or you're doing something with a career, or you're starting off a business and you're doing it for the right reason. So I do have that bent that I always think that first. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I try to capture some clarity around the person's motivation. So I don't know if you know much about motivation, but total motivation is made up of 6 elements: play, potential, and purpose, and then economic, emotional, and inertia. And the first 3, all the P's, if you increase potential, if you increase your purpose, if you increase your play, and I don't mean playing foosball in the office or anything. I'm talking about playing and testing and learning and challenging yourself with work. If you increase any of those 3 things, your motivation will increase.
Yeah.
If you increase your emotional, economic, or inertia aspects, your motivation will decrease because they are negative pressures. So if you think about it,
Okay.
Beth, if I said to you, I really, really want you to come to this event for me, Beth, because you let me down last time, right? I'm putting some emotional pressure on you. You will come
Yeah.
to the event, but you won't be motivated to do anything. You won't be motivated to be there because you've got some emotional stress on you. Because I've played the emotion card. I've played that sort of hand.
Yeah.
So, and the same with economic factors. If you think about it, how many people would do their job that they're doing today if they had all the money in the world? Probably not a lot of people. They might be doing something. They might be working. They might be doing a cause. They might be moving to something passionate. So I try to look at what the person gets joy out of. What are they playing at? What are they passionate about? What's their potential in terms of what do they see they'd like to do? What is it that makes them smile? I try to get under I don't talk often about work. It's often about what you're doing in the weekends, or what the kind of things that connect you to the people that surround yourself with, the friends, all that kind of stuff. And then from there, and once we've seen that, then I start asking about maybe what they're passionate about and what they believe in, and what kind of things they'd like to have changed. And if they could wave a magic wand, is one of my favorite questions. If you could wave a magic wand and I could give you anything, or you could be anywhere, or you could be doing whatever you wanted to do, what would it be? And often that'll start to trigger a little thing to go and investigate. Sometimes people don't know. Sometimes people can't articulate, and that's the first step. We have a four-step model, 4 stages of A's we call. So we got alignment, so getting clarity and alignment about who you are, what you want to be, how. If you take this as a team, it's clarity of where the business is going, questions around who's on the bus, who's not on the bus, how team are engaged, have you got enough trust within your team? So we get a clarity and an alignment of who you are and what you want to do, basically. Yeah. So that's where we first start.
And that whole stuff about motivation there. So increase, plays an interesting one. I'd probably call it like experimentation, trying stuff out. Doing. It's probably this. That's what in my head went straight there. It's like, and I'm a big believer in do micro experiments, try some stuff out, see how it works for you, see how it works for your business, and work through that stuff. And some of it might not work, and that's okay because you're experimenting, you're playing with it. The potential, like understanding where things could go, what could amazing in this look like, how could I develop that, how can I make that happen, things like, am I investing in my own development, am I investing in my team, how am I developing our ability to have more potential? And I think that purpose one for me is really key as well. And when you were talking about it, it's like, all of those things, if you let me at them, if I think about them for myself, if I help other people think about them, they are the sort of things that get you excited. They kind of bring your energy level really, really up. And one of the things I always say about purpose, and I don't know if you've seen this, is that some people find that really, really hard to articulate. And I think you said, some people don't know what that looks like. I'm a big advocate for like mini purposes, micro purposes. Like you could have, some people call it like an intention. What's my purpose for today? What am I trying to do right now? And sometimes we hear about purpose only in the sense of, you hear about like, Leonardo DiCaprio, for example, his purpose is all around like the environment and saving the world. It's like, that is so big and so different to what would you do if you're a multimillionaire versus if you haven't got money to invest in it. And sometimes purpose seems a bit scary. So I always think if you can start that purpose bit a little bit smaller, like what am I trying to do today? Or, what am I bringing to work, or something in that zone?
Yeah, or a slight change. I agree with you completely. And I was going to say, I've only recently been able to articulate my purpose in a future sense. But I've been doing it for the last 6 years, but wasn't quite clear on how to articulate it so people could understand. And I think that the other way, if you can't quite get that, the other way to ask the question is to say to yourself, okay, what am I passionate about? So I was speaking to somebody yesterday who's actually an Olympian. Okay, so I'm helping an Olympian at the moment with some career development. They've retired now from the sport, and they wanted to get some mentoring and coaching around that. And I was talking about the particular sport, and I said, well, obviously, clearly you're passionate about that. And they went, well, actually, it wasn't my first choice sport. I said, sorry. And I said, where's that going? So actually, I preferred gymnastics. I said, okay, all right, okay. What? I said, actually, but it wasn't that. I'm actually passionate about improving myself. So your purpose, we all, as you say, sometimes think because we get surrounded by them that a purpose has to be some grandioso thing that you can't touch for the next 20 years. But actually, it could be more about taking something you're passionate about and changing something within it, or making something for better for everybody else within that passion, or refining a passion and becoming such an expert in that passion that actually you then inspire others to become interested in that passion. So actually your purpose might not start off as a grandiose purpose. It might start off just as your passion to want to understand something, or your passion to want to change things the better for somebody else. That's fine. They might be just changing a process at work, might be your passion. And actually, when you do that once, you realize actually you love solving problems. And then that solving problems could lead to a next thing. And the next thing about solving problems could lead to, well, that problem over there is really tricky. And that's something I really want to try and find out. Right, how can I get a group of us to change that problem over there? So I think you're right. They don't necessarily start off as grandiose, but actually they can end up being that way.
Yeah, and then suddenly you kind of have that moment where you join all the dots and you go, oh, okay, so that's what all this work in the last 10 years has been in service of. I get it now. I get it.
Well,
and allow it to develop.
Well, interestingly enough, I'm a coach and a mentor, and I have coaches and mentors as well. And one of mine asked me a really tricky question, actually, as I say, just before we started to talk end of last year, October, November, which was, what was my philosophy? And I know you're probably going to ask me to share this. So, I was, that's an interesting question. Thanks for asking. But actually, I at that point, they also said to me, if you think about people like Nelson Mandela or Gandhi or Mother Teresa or anybody that's made a real significant thought leader shift in our society's thinking, okay, they don't talk about the here and now. They talk about 10 years' time. They talk about a world where XYZ has happened. And so they were asking me about my philosophy, and they were asking me about my future thought leader stance, I suppose you'd want to say. And I was finding that quite tricky, because I'm a doer. I live in the now. I want to get things to achieve today. I want to make sure I've got goals, I've got targets, I've got things I set myself, but they're all about doing stuff today. And he was asking me to imagine and to think about 10 years' time, which, whoa, that's quite a long way off, And actually, there was something in what he said to me which made me think about individuals and people, and forgive me, I'm going to be slightly rude, people having an excuse for not doing stuff, right? And what I mean by that is there seems to be a bit of a trend at the moment to, oh, well, I would love to do that, but I can't because of this. Oh, I'd love to do that, but I can't because of the other. Oh, that's not me. I'm not able to do that. And it seems like people are happy to give up and give an excuse really quickly, particularly some of our younger people. When they don't succeed the first time, they seem to give up quite quickly. And I do have a bee in my bonnet about that, because I believe, as I've just said, anybody is capable of doing anything, and potential is there for everybody to do everything. So actually, in thinking that through, coming to a conclusion, come with me in a minute, Beth, come with me.
I'm with you.
Imagine a world where every single person was living to their full potential. Imagine what we'd achieve. Imagine how happy we'd all be, because we'd all be working on stuff we love to do and working at our best, being our best self. Imagine what problems we'd solve in the world. If we could get every single human being to work to their full potential. That's not mean we're all going to be rocket science. That doesn't mean we're all going to be, entrepreneurs. It means that we're going to live to our best potential, which might mean, for me, I just help one or two people be the best version of themselves. It might mean I help 1 million people be the best version of themselves. It might be my dad does some stuff for charity. It might be that the little old lady around the corner, who's a cleaner for the offices, just cleans those offices so immensely beautifully that the executives there find their life so much easier, so they can go on and do things that are amazing for our country.
Yeah. And I think this is the lovely bit, isn't it? It's like, if you can imagine that future, that gets quite exciting.
Yeah.
So you can then combine like your purpose and your passion together,
Yeah.
and think about how do you use that energy in service of that, and think about how is, you know, your different parts of your career are all in service of the same thing. So how do we pull them all together?
Yeah.
And I have one of my philosophies, and I have a few of them, but one of my philosophies, and people often look at me with a little bit of a strange head when I tell them this is one of my philosophies. So I do a lot of group work with people, facilitation, that kind of work. And people go, oh, we've got a really complicated thing here. And I say to them, the answer is within the room of people. They have the answer that you need. Your people have that answer.
Yeah.
What we haven't done is ask them the right questions, or ask them in the right way, or got their thinking in the right direction yet. But
Yeah.
I honestly believe that 99% probably, because there's always an exception that proves the rule. 99%, I think, of organisations' challenges can be solved by the people within it if you direct them in the right direction.
Couldn't agree more. Everybody has greatness in them. It's not it's not that it's thrust upon us. We can make greatness happen, and it is absolutely about being applied. It's about being aligned. It's about taking action. So the other A's, by the way, are, you know, be aligned, get your team aligned behind the right sort of direction of travel. Take some action, do something.
Yeah.
One of my values is about inspiring people to act. You just do something. It doesn't matter what, just do something in the right direction, and you'll be well on your way. Then you've got to be accountable. So I'm a human accountability expert. My job is to help people be accountable for their actions, and then you'll achieve. I mean, it's that simple, and that will lead to greatness. It might take you 6 weeks, it might take you 6 months, it might take you 6 years, it might take you 60 years. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But if you point yourself in the right direction because you're aligned and you understand where you're going, you take some action, you keep yourself accountable, you will achieve.
Yeah. Yeah, and I always think as well, we always think about that gap between like thinking about what you need to do and where you need to get to. It's like this massive big thing. So it's a big step. But I love what you're saying, and I always recommend people do this, is just do something. Because my statement always on this is one step forward in any direction, doesn't really matter what direction it is, feels way better and inspires way more action than standing still.
Yeah.
Standing still actually is falling behind most of the time. So you know, one step, do something.
Yeah. So I in setting up, let me run the first time I actually run this sort of little acronym past anybody, Beth. So give me your view on it. So my dad always said, keep it simple, stupid, because obviously my dad's from the north. So I like KISS quite a lot. So I was going to use KISS and say KISS MC squared. So know what you are and who you are and what you want to do.
Yeah.
Improve yourself.
Yeah.
Set about doing something.
Yeah.
Stay focused.
Yeah.
And then the MC squared is measure, because what we measure gets done.
Yeah.
Find your mojo. So once you get into the flow, that'll keep you going. Be consistent.
Yeah.
And then celebrate. So two M's and two C's. So know yourself, improve yourself, set about doing something, stay focused, measure, find your mojo, consistent work, and then celebrate.
Love it. It's a great way of thinking about it. And, you know, within that, that could be personally, that could be in your organization, it could be within a team, whatever context you're trying to achieve within. It's like work through some of those steps. And that first one is so aligned, isn't it, with like kind of the purpose, the passion, what do you care about, what's important to you. And if it's okay for a second, I just want to go back to the other side of the motivation thing around kind of I think you said it was about economics, about inertia, and around emotional. And the emotional one is one I want to really pick up on, because I think the world uses the emotional one a lot. And people listening to this will probably be sitting there thinking, I know I can think of examples where I've done something for people because they kind of set about the emotional. You probably wouldn't call it full emotional blackmail, but they're kind of playing on your heartstrings type thing. But you never go into something where somebody has done that being fully engaged, being fully up for it, being fully enthusiastic. So I think if you give in to the emotional side of stuff, what you end up doing is half-assing it, and that's no good for anybody.
Well, there's quite a lot around this, isn't there? So where to start? Maybe I'll just wander off and come back.
See where you go.
Yeah, so, but the point you're making there is the reason why you've gone into it half-heartedly is because you're not doing it for yourself, you're doing it for somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's never the start of a good success. I mean, there's a couple of books by Sarah Knight that I can't tell the titles of in a public.
Oh yeah, love
that talks about that stuff, right? We'll talk about books more later. But you know. So if you're doing it for somebody else, the minute you think you're doing something for somebody else, that'll be a warning flag to me to say, hold on a second. Now, you still might do it for that other person because actually making them happy gives you joy, genuine joy, sometimes we do want to do that to make somebody else happy because we can see the joy it brings to them as well. So don't get me wrong, sometimes you will, but it's a flag for me just to do a double check. Why am I actually doing it? Will this person that I'm doing this for actually appreciate what I'm doing and why? Let me tell you a tale. I once worked in an organisation. It's my first job down south. I come from the north of England, quite a different culture up in the north of England, moved down south and worked in quite a rather posh organisation in Bristol. And they went to the pub every Friday lunchtime. And at the time I didn't drink. I went for many, many, many weeks because, I wanted to be part of the group. I wanted to be in the in crowd. I wanted to know what the gossip was. I felt for my best career, I needed to be in that pub, in that group, because it gave me a sense of belonging, right? If I was going to put myself on the outside, if I was going to become an outlier, then actually that might not be very safe. Actually, if you think about going prehistoric times, when you did that, you were pretty much dead. If you didn't be part of a group, if you didn't belong, then they were going to leave you outside in the cold, or the saber-toothed tiger was going to get you. So you need it. So we've got three things we want. We want to have love, security, and belonging. So I would go to the pub on a Friday because I felt I needed to belong in that group, because if I didn't belong in that group, I wasn't going to be safe and I'd be out on my jacksie. Okay. So sometimes we do things because of one of those drivers. We do things because of a security or a safety issue. So yes, indeed, the emotional aspect is generally something we react to because of love, safety, or belonging.
Yeah. Even if it's to our own worst detriment sometimes. And I think what you're saying there about, it doesn't mean you don't do it, because there are people that we want to do things for, and there is loads of joy in actually helping other people if it's what you really want to do.
100%.
One of the things I always talk about with here is like, actually, but what are your boundaries around that? And if you're going to say yes to an emotional plea for something, what are you actually going to be saying no to? Because you can't do everything. We don't have enough time in the world to do everything we want to do. And if you're saying no, what does that lead to as well? So it's almost like taking that moment and really thinking and pausing and saying, hang on a minute, is this the right thing to do?
Sorry, Beth. I would say though that if you've had an emotional request, if something's happened to you, if somebody's sent something to you and they're trying to pull on your heartstrings for you to do something. If you make the call to say, I'm actually going to do it, you've made the call consciously, not on the emotion, but on the result of the action.
Yeah.
So actually, you're not reacting to the emotion at that point. So if you just did it without thinking and wasn't conscious of the fact that they were emotionally tapping into your sort of psyche, then actually, yes, you would be. And that would be a negative, detrimental motivator. However, if you say to yourself, do you know what, Beth, Nicola's asked me to go to this event. I actually really want to help Nicola with her greater purpose of helping people become best versions of themselves. Actually, that's a really good thing to do. So you actually then it becomes a motivator because you've connected into the greater point.
Yeah.
So
you've gone back to your P's, right? Haven't you? You've gone back to like your purpose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So actually at that point, you're not reacting to the emotion. You're actually reacting to the logic, conscious thought of actually, yes, I would like to do that because of these reasons. Not because Nicola's asking me, not because Nicola's tugging on my heartstrings, but actually, I think it's a really good thing to do. So then you become motivated because it's got purpose or it's got potential or it's play.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's that thinking time, isn't it? It's going, actually, what am I doing here? And then my advice always is, if you decide to do it, be all in, like actually be excited, be brilliant, go for it.
Yeah.
Because doing something begrudgingly is like the worst thing. It's so lacking in joy.
Yeah, I mean, and be brutally honest, I'm sure some of your listeners have been the same. I did that for years,
Yeah.
4 years. I needed to. I wasn't ever the popular girl at school, and I always wanted to be in the it crowd, and I never quite had the right skirt or the right cagoule as we used to have back then, and I didn't quite have the right. I used to have curly hair, and then my dad said get a perm, and it went really curly like Annie, and it was just all disaster really, and so you can imagine me, poor orphan Annie, in the playground with curly hair, not fitting in, and then having people ask me to do things. So I jumped at any chance to be part of the crowd and to belong, because that wasn't really there for me at that time. So
Yeah.
but what I would say to people now is that actually you can find the love, security and belonging from within yourself if you are aligned with who you are. So that whole work, whether it be with a team or whether it be with an individual, the alignment piece, I mean, I spend all my life doing alignment pieces, but the alignment piece of really truly understanding who you are. And it might start off, lots of your listeners will be thinking, well, how the hell am I supposed to know who I am? I have no idea. I'm just, I've got 3 kids. I'm a mother. I'm this, I'm that. I'm a chief exec at work. I'm doing this over here. I'm a governor at school. I haven't got time to be thinking like that. But actually, there are just 3 or 4 questions you can start off by asking yourself that will really help you get a bit of clarity. And actually, just getting clarity on what you don't know is actually helpful, because then you go about setting off and asking yourself those questions too.
Yeah. And it seems like a big task, but actually, if you put some of those thoughts in your mind about, actually, one of the things I really want to do is I want to understand, who I am. If you ask yourself that question, your subconscious eventually will answer it for you, because it will start going, I'm going to pick up that little piece from what you did today, and I'm going to pick up this here. And you talked in that meeting about this philosophy. And when you went to that interview the other day, you had such a great answer for this bit of it. And it will come if you pay a little bit of attention to it. You don't have to force it. You don't have to be like, I need by the end of today to have decided exactly who I am and where my alignment is.
Yeah.
It's something that you can develop and allow to evolve.
Yeah. And you've every single person, I hope people are listening. I'm going to listen to this a little bit now. Every single person out there, you are you. You just haven't quite articulated it yet. You're behaving as you every single day, but maybe some of the things that you do, you're not quite happy you're doing. Well, change them. Maybe some of the things you do, you're really good at and you could be even better at. Well, improve them. Maybe some of the things you do actually are fantastic. Leave them as they be. Keep going. So we're already ourselves, but actually just articulating it helps us to pick out the points that we could do more on, and we can have more joy in life with, because actually we really love that bit, but we actually haven't ever either been brave enough or even been conscious enough to say it out loud.
Exactly. You are actually you already. You're already there.
We're already there. And actually everybody else around us can see it, but we just don't like to look in the mirror sometimes. My husband, I have a little, I'm not sure, some of your listeners again will recognize this. I have, based on my experience at school, a whole sort of I'm not good enough mentality, believe it or not. And actually I work on it every single day, and I've worked on it for probably a good 5 years now. But actually I'm just coming to the point now where I absolutely can sit in a room and take a compliment now. I can actually sit in a room and say to somebody, no, I actually do know that, and actually I am good enough to be in this room, because I always work to improve myself. So I always think there's more to learn, and that's absolutely fantastic, because it drives me to be the best version of myself I can be, right? But sometimes when you're in a room where there's really, really high achievers, and there's sometimes when you're maybe having a bit of a tired day, or sometimes when you've been working really, really hard and things haven't quite gone as planned, you sometimes think to yourself, well, maybe I'm not good enough. And so sometimes that drive to be better, that drive for self-improvement, personal development, can lead a little bit to you just falling over the edge and thinking you're not quite good enough. And so it is a balance for me, because the thing drives me in my achievements. But once you sort of really recognize that you are you, and you've got a unique set of skills and abilities, and you've got a unique set of experiences that nobody else has actually ever had, then you can be immense. You can be anything.
And I'm really interested in you talking about this idea that I too am slightly obsessed with personal and professional development. I love it, and I think a lot of people do. But what we stop, and I've so many people I've coached have been on this path as well. They haven't stopped and gone and looked at, oh, hang on a minute, what's the result of all that development I've done? What's the achievement? They haven't done that celebration bit that you talked about in your you want that. It's like the celebration bit, and they haven't recognized how much they've already grown. So they're comparing themselves now to 10 years ago and ignoring the 100 bits of development that they've done between then. So they still think they have, and having a focus on development is a great thing, and it will keep you learning, it'll keep you fresh, it'll keep you in a great space. But you have to recognize what that development has done for you and where you are now, not an old story about yourself.
Well, if you again linking that into the chimp paradox, Stephen Peters, he talks about you having a chimp, your emotional side, a computer, that's your logic, your processing side, and then you've got your tablet or your grand commitments, if you think about it that way, the 10 commandments, sorry, the things that are etched in stone that you know to be true, and only you know to be true, right? Okay, so if you have what happened to me, which I was a bit bullied at school, picked on at school, we didn't call it bullied, we just, it got picked on a little bit because I couldn't read, I'm slightly dyslexic, and the girls used to make me read at school because they knew I'd cry. And I did. Cried every other day when I had to read because I didn't know the words. But after a couple of weeks when this happened to me, it got to the point where I had to start reading outside of school, and I had to try and make myself better. So I used to always try and read a chapter in front so I knew what the words were going to be. And I'd always try and work really, really hard. And that gave me this really, really great work ethic. So I would always try and work hard, improve myself, and be the best I could be. But I always had in the back of my head those experiences because they were chiseled in stone that when I read, I made a mistake and cried. When I read out loud in class, I made a mistake and cried. Now, actually, if that happens time and time again, and we get told those things, and our experience are, if I do in English, I spelled something wrong. I had to do a spelling test. I got it wrong. I can't spell.
Yeah.
So then when I left school, I couldn't read and I couldn't spell. Of course, that's not true. I write blogs and speak and I do presentations, all sorts of stuff. But I am slightly dyslexic, so I do get spelling wrong and I do have to check those things. But because it's been etched in my tablet, then that's what I believed. So you're absolutely right, Beth. What we need to do with this sort of alignment and the celebration is actually acknowledge that actually, that coming back to journaling, that was a win today. I spelt that word right today. I learned this today. And by building that up, we'll rewrite that tablet. We'll resend the neural pathways to say, well, actually, no, you can spell some things, Nicola. You don't get it wrong every time. That type of thing. So that's one of the things that we can all do, is to consciously think about that sort of those achievements, the things we've improved, and then start to, if we can, rewrite those history experiences in a different way.
Yeah, kind of rewrite the stories that we're telling ourselves and kind of be in a different way. And I also think there's something there about, we all have bucket loads of potential, right? We can all be brilliant, but we don't all actually have to be brilliant at everything.
No.
And there's something around like, do you know what? If I'm not good at spelling, I'm not good at spelling. I'm good at other stuff. And being okay with the fact that not everyone is brilliant at everything, because nobody can be.
No, and there's a whole theory around education on this, isn't there? And they've tried different things. I'm not an educational specialist, but I've just become a governor of a school because I want to try and impart some of the changes I want to do in terms of potential and confidence and greatness into young people. And so that's part of that greater plan. And the Welsh government, because I'm based in Wales, in Cardiff, and the Welsh government have changed the curriculum recently. And I don't know the ins and outs completely, but the one thing they are trying to focus on is the individual's potential. So you're going to get monitored against the growth for you, not against what the rest of the class is doing. You're going to get to focus on learning the things that we have to learn English and maths, and we have to learn certain things, but learning them in a way and in a situation that you might like. So if you're really interested in art, or you're really interested in languages, you might learn maths through languages, or you might learn English through art. So they're trying to, and again, please correct me, anybody who's listening that knows about the Welsh curriculum inside and out. But my understanding is they're trying to take the potential of the individual and make the basic skills and knowledge learning in a way that they will pick it up in a more positive sense, which means that actually they should be able to harness their potential greater.
Yeah, rather than you have to be great at everything all around here, and you have to be in competition with other people, and that's just
Yeah.
You know, it's not particularly healthy. I love that idea.
Yeah.
Right, where we're at right now, I think you and I could probably talk for the rest of the day, but I'm not sure that everyone would necessarily want to listen to us for the rest of the day. So what I'm going to do now is to move us on to some quick fire questions. Are you ready?
I am.
Right. First one is, for you personally, what is always guaranteed to bring you some work joy?
I'm going to double answer this, I'm afraid, Beth. Already,
That's all right.
I'm going off the quick fire thing. Two things. One is individual results, so people doing stuff. So when I've spoken to somebody and they come back next week, or they come back the day after, or they send me a message, or they send me a picture, I've just achieved this, that brings me joy every day of the week. I just think, oh my God, they've gone and done something, and it's been, you know, it's great. And then the second is a beautiful fountain pen and great stationery. I love, you know, I used to love that going back to school. We used to be able to go to WH Smith's to buy all your stationery and everything. And I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with pens and beautiful notebooks. I just love that stuff.
Yeah, and you know, I am a massive fan of the stationery too. Like I can still, you talk about like emotional stuff, I can still feel the excited feeling of buying a new pencil case for the year.
Oh my
God.
God.
I can feel it right now.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh yeah.
Mine was the notepad, not the pencil case, but yeah, I'm with you. I'm there.
And even now, if I need to cheer myself up, I just get myself and I start a new notepad, and it's like, right, I'm happy. Yeah, like, instant happiness. Love it. Question 2: what book are you currently reading?
I'm currently reading Grit by Angela Duckworth, and this is about the power of persuasion and perseverance. And basically, she talks about the difference between you know, people that might be gifted, might not be gifted, but the people that just achieve X, or the people that go on to achieve amazing greatness. And it's about the mixture of perseverance and passion. She's a professor of psychology at Pennsylvania University. So I'm currently reading that, and I'm a bit obsessed with it. But I actually run a business book club. So if any of your listeners out there really love reading business books, it's completely free to attend. We just do it because we love doing it. We meet sort of every 6 weeks. It's like a proper book club. So some people have wine, some people have crisps. You know, we basically read the book beforehand, get together on Zoom, and we read the book. So pretty much I could probably list you about 50 books I would recommend people reading, because I've just got loads of favourites.
Love it. And Grit is brilliant. So I would double up on that recommendation. It's great. I think as well, because of the psychology angle, it helps you understand kind of how do you actually do this? How do you create that success, and how do you use those things together? So definitely a double thumbs up for that particular book. Right. Next question is, what is the best or most useful bit of advice that somebody has given to you in your life that you always find yourself coming back to?
Well, I'm afraid it's a bit of dad. It's a bit of dad advice. And my dad's been a maintenance manager and a painter and decorator all his life. He's never really been in business, but he's really great at a couple of nuggets of advice. And he always said, do your best every day, and then no one can say anything to you. He didn't say try your best. He said do your best. And I think that's the important thing, do and best. And I think if you do your best every day, nobody can question you. Nobody can say, oh, do you know what? If you'd have only done... No, you did your best. Now you can learn things and you can improve, but do your best every day.
Yeah. And it's a great bit of advice. I love a bit of dad advice as well, is that that also has the ability to be flexible, because your best on your worst day will look different from your best on your best day, but doing your best on that day is the best you can do.
Yeah.
It's like, it allows you to not have an unrealistic benchmark. It allows it to flex and be in the real world of real life.
Yeah, exactly.
Love that. Great bit of advice. Next one. What is one super practical bit of advice that you think our listeners could go and do now, do tomorrow, do the next day, that might bring them a little bit of work joy?
Just do. I mean, I think it's Star Wars, isn't it? Do or do not. There is no try. And I
Yeah.
think that action is everything for me.
Mm,
So if you're thinking, you know what makes you happy. Your listeners know what makes them happy. If you know what makes you happy, just do something about that every day. It might be buying a
yeah.
book on the subject. It might be watching a TV program on the subject. It might be meeting some friends to talk about it. It might be buying your first pair of trainers to go for a run. It doesn't matter what it is. In Atomic Habits, the book by James Clear, he
Mm,
talks about to build habits of doing things, it's about making it attractive,
yeah.
making it doable, as in small bite-sized chunks, pairing it
Yeah.
up with something. So, for example, if you want to get into the habit of going to the gym, putting your trainers at the bottom of your bed, so the first thing you see are your trainers when you get up, you've got more of a chance of putting them on.
Yeah.
And so the doable bit there is, I'm just going to put my trainers on. By the time you put your trainers on, you're probably going to get in the car and go to the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I say to myself, I'm just going to go for 10 minutes. By the time you get there for 10 minutes, you'll do half an hour because you can't be bothered to go
Yeah.
for 10 minutes and come back. So for me, the one thing that you can do, which is a practical bit of advice, is actually just do something.
Yeah. And almost, it does matter slightly, but almost it doesn't really matter what you do, but do something and see how it goes for you.
Yeah.
And allow that to then, maybe it is that you loved it and you're going to do more of it and you built it up. But maybe it's also that you go, right, I'm going to take that thing off my list because it's no longer something that brings me any joy. So let's not do that. Let's do less of that. It will teach you something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brilliant. And then finally, Nicola, it's been such a lovely conversation. Where can people find out more about you, your work, what you do, the book club, all of that kind of stuff?
Well, I'm on all good social media platforms. Just have a look for the Nicola Rylett Group and you'll find us there. LinkedIn generally has most of our activity on it in terms of business, but we also,
Yeah.
I say, we're on all the other platforms. I do a weekly digest. I don't call it a newsletter because really, let's face it, I don't have a lot of news happening, but I do have a lot of opinions and I always have a digest of something to think about or something to talk about. So I do a weekly digest, which is called the Weekly NRG. And that comes out by email. So you just need to email me, Nicola at the nicolarylettgroup.co.uk, and you can get hold of that there. We also, towards the end of last year, released a podcast called Weekly NRG Podcast, and that can be found, I think it's on Spotify at the moment, but probably on all good podcast channels.
Brilliant. And we'll put all those links, etc., into the show notes as well, so people can easily click through and get to find whatever they need. Nicola, thank you so much for being a wonderful guest. Some real things for us to all to take away and think about. And have a great rest of your day.
Wonderful. Thanks ever so much, Beth. Lovely to speak to you.
Well, it was so great to have Nicola Rylett come on the podcast and talk to us about her philosophy, her thinking around things to do with motivation and action, and obviously talking a lot about just doing things and how action really inspires us to keep going and to make achievement happen. I think some of the things that I'm really thinking about from what Nicola was talking about is that idea of where motivation comes from and how if we build a sense of play, I'd call it experimentation, but that sense of doing, trying things out, putting ourselves out there, giving things a go. If we're thinking about the potential, so we're seeing the potential, not the problem. If we're thinking about what our purpose is, whether that's a big purpose or a tiny purpose or what we care about or our passion, when we work on those things, our motivation increases. It's why when we do a course, that links to our potential, links to us developing ourselves. We feel great about it. But also thinking about how do we understand and work on things like that inertia, that emotional aspect, and the economics of things, and how sometimes those can actually decline our motivation. So really pausing and thinking about how doing something makes a difference. And also that idea of the alignment, moving to action, moving to accountability, and then achievement. And I love the idea of this, imagine the future. Imagine a better future. How does that help you understand what it is that you care about and your philosophy? How do you make that happen? And how do you get to the stage of being able to articulate who you are? Because you are already who you are, but how do you talk about that? How do you understand it at a deeper level? And I think that's something that is really one of those things that so many people I work with, and I know I've been through this well, at different stages of our lives, we come to it and go, oh, okay, things have changed, and maybe I'm no longer who I thought I was before, and things have developed, and I've grown, and I'm a different person now. And how do I talk about that? And I think that's a really great conversation in your own mind, but also one maybe to have with your squad, or to have with a coach or a mentor or somebody who can help you work through some of that thinking. So some great advice there from Nicola. Do get in touch with her if you want to find out more about what she's doing or get involved with her book club. Great things happening there. And as for everything WorkJoy, obviously WorkJoy, a toolkit for a better working life. The book is available now on an ebook or, a real hard copy book, which is what I choose because I like to have my hands on them. We also have Club WorkJoy, which is a great community of people. We're all thinking about how do we get more WorkJoy more often? How do we help each other? We have great speakers. We have amazing group coaching sessions and lots of other things in Club WorkJoy. So do head over to createworkjoy.com and have a little look if you're interested. And you can also, on the website, download the WorkJoy Where Do You Get Yours experiment, which is something that we talked about earlier in this podcast. It's a great way of really understanding where you get your WorkJoy from and how you might be able to get even more of it. Would love to hear from you. Any feedback, do please rate and feedback on your podcast app. It really helps to get the podcast into the ears of people that really need it. Thank you.